ਹਾਂਜੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ Hello everyone, welcome to my show Hot Seat. I'm really pleased to have Nancy Liu on my podcast today. She's National Party MP who came into Parliament in 2023. She's known for working towards economic issues and also she have a really good engagement with diverse communities across Auckland. I'm really pleased to have her on my show today. Hi guys, welcome to my show Hot Seat. Today's guest is someone who's very inspiring and her name is Nancy Liu. She came into politics in 2023. And her background is really inspiring as well. So I really wanted to know about her journey. Welcome to the show, Nancy.
Thank you so much and thank you for having me. Your show has been very popular, I have to say. So I've been waiting to come onto your show.
Thanks so much. How are you feeling, by the way, sir?
I'm feeling good. It's been a very busy few weeks. Even during the Easter holiday, we were half working and half trying to catch up with family time. But it's just been great to see communities getting together despite the uncertainties in the world and also in the country. But people are still very actively getting together to make the most out of their days.
It's actually really good to know that you're working so hard for the people actually around like Auckland and things like that. I know a lot of people actually you're engaging with through social medias and your posts as well. It's really inspiring.
Thank you.
Good to know that, and thank you so much for doing this.
No, thank you.
Let's start with your journey a little bit, so because you came to New Zealand as a child, as I know, So how was your experience then and now? What differences you see?
Things have changed a lot since our family moved to New Zealand. So we came in the 90s and I was only about 9 years old. So we got here from a city called Guangzhou in China. And that was even before any direct flights between China and New Zealand. Now we see about 50 direct flights between the two countries every week.
Exactly.
Right? And I look forward to the day that we have the direct flights with India. So things have moved on really, really quickly. But in the last 30 years, things have changed. I went to school when I went to Avondale Primary, a local primary school. And I remember I was one of the very, very few Chinese ethnic students who didn't speak any English.
Yes.
So I had classmates who are very curious who I am, who can't communicate with me. My teachers didn't know how to communicate with me. That was before cell phones, before Google, before Facebook. Everything was like yellow pages. If you needed anything, you have to flip through the page. All the translation are done on dictionaries, actually paper dictionaries, not through any translators.
There's no good...
So nothing. So learning English then was very different to learning English now. And the connectivity that we have now in New Zealand between people, between communities, between New Zealand, our chosen home, but also people in our home country, for example, in China or in India. Things have just changed so much in the last 30-something years.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Oh, so what was your dream like when you came to New Zealand? Because everyone have a dream, like when you was a kid. What you wanted to be like? You wanted to be a successful political leader, or?
No, politics never crossed my mind, and I think it doesn't really cross particularly migrants' minds.
Yes.
Because both you and I would remember the days when we had to leave our home country, pack everything. It's such a huge challenge to come to a new country where you have very limited family members' support. You have to make new friends. You have to give up everything at home and start new in New Zealand. So I don't think politics ever was really in our minds, in migrants' minds. Whereas we were more focused on how do I find a better job, do better studies, how do I connect with people that are different to my culture. I can learn English better, but how do I not forget my heritage and stay connected with our own people in our own country? A lot of our focus will be around that. And when my family first came to New Zealand, I remember my parents were both engineers in China. And so when they came to New Zealand, neither of them qualified to find engineering jobs in New Zealand because of the licensing, because of language barriers. So both engineers ended up giving up their job in China, came to New Zealand, and the first job that my mother found was doing dishes in a Chinese restaurant. So I remember the days where every day is about finding a new job, find 2 jobs or 3 jobs, do the weekday, do the weekends, so that we can have a established home. And that took some years. So as a kid, all I wanted to do is to just be a good girl, go to school, study well, like most migrants,
Yes.
study well, and then find a very stable job.
Yes.
So I did do that. I ended up doing accounting.
Yes, I know.
And then I ended up being an auditor. I work not far from here in PwC. Everything was just according to the plan. I think the plan of being good and achieving excellence.
Yes, your parents must have been really proud, and they worked so hard, actually, to be honest. Really respect for them. And the second thing was, what was your first job like?
Oh my God. My first part-time job?
Yeah.
I was 15.
Yes.
I wanted to work in a cafe, but as a 15-year-old with no working experience, none of the cafes will take me on.
Yes.
And then I tried McDonald's and KFC, and none of the fast food chain restaurants would take me on because I have no job experience.
Oh, yes.
And then I tried the supermarkets, cash outs, and stocking or working in the bakery. None of them will take me on. So ultimately, my very first part-time job was delivering newspapers in the local community. So I get a lot of newspapers delivered to my door, to our home. And then I have to carry the newspapers and walk around the neighborhood a couple of times a week and to deliver the local newspapers into letterboxes. From then and then to the future part-time jobs.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting and inspiring as well. Just such a hard work you done at the start,
Yeah, well, I think we all start somewhere, like yourself. Most
yes.
migrants who come to New Zealand, we all start somewhere, and we have to lower our expectations.
Yes.
And possibly not do the professional jobs that we were trained, but to start somewhere. Quite low, but find a stable income for ourselves.
Yes, that's pretty good. And what was a chartered accountant? And you already know about financial things, and now you are in Parliament as well, handling financial and expenditure as well. So, what was the experience like that with working with what sort of leaders you work with?
So in my job now at Parliament, I sit on the Finance Expenditure Select Committee, which means I deal with mostly the Reserve Bank, Treasury, I deal with the Minister for Commerce and Consumer, I deal with Minister of Finance, Minister of Tax Revenue. So a range of finance and budgeting, either from a central government finance and budgeting or as members, we start inquiries, such as we recently had the banking inquiry. How do we make sure that banks in New Zealand are a lot more competitive, driving down the cost to help consumers to have lower cost of banking, but also better services and better products?
Yeah. You have a wide areas of knowledge, actually. Accounting is a big thing, especially dealing with money and finances and expenditure, this sort of thing. You have a really great knowledge. Good to know that. Why you choose only national?
Why national? Very simple, because I believe in the principle and values that National Party has, which is about being prudent and being very careful with taxpayers' money. Because ultimately, we are only caretakers of taxpayers' money, right? It is your hardworking wage and salary that you pay the PAYE for. Therefore, the government is only the caregiver of your taxpayers' money. So where we spend on as central government, whether in health or education or transport or infrastructure, it needs to be under a lot of prudent consideration, that we're not splashing money around. The impact of, for example, splashing money, borrowing a lot of money, adding to the interest and loan for New Zealand overall, and therefore increasing the inflation, and therefore everybody, including yourself and myself, all New Zealanders and our future generation, have to now pay for the loan and the cost of having that loan. I see these as irresponsible central government decisions, and therefore I'm with the National Party, who we focus more on prudent spending.
Yes.
We focus on resilient spending to make sure that we're not spending future money.
Yes, yes.
And I strongly don't believe that money grows on trees. Yes. Somehow I believe the other parties have this idea that we can just borrow how much, whatever money that we want to. We can't do that.
Yes.
It will drive our New Zealand economy into, I think, a worse outcome overall in the longer run.
Just really want people to know as well, Nancy is the one who talks about public issues like cost of living and all other crises as well. and I want to let Nancy know to share her views about the cost of living. What do you think? Because I read about you, you're the one talking about cost of livings and all the crises, which people are facing, and they want to know as well. What you think about that cost of living right now? Do you think borrowing money during COVID time that affecting now as well, like 66 billion?
Absolutely. And what I believe in strongly is that it is fine to borrow money.
Yeah.
Because, for example, many households borrow money in the form of mortgage to have their first home.
Yes.
But then once you have that responsibility and that liability of a mortgage, you work really hard to pay down your mortgage.
Yes.
So ultimately you own the asset.
Yes.
But what's bad for households to do is to borrow money to spend on housing and mortgage, but also spend the money on everything else that is not helping of bringing down the mortgage.
Yes.
When you waste money like that, and when you borrow money to spend on other things that are not inappropriate for bringing down the overall loan for your family, you end up driving more loan, more liability, more debt for the family. And I think that is the problem that the last Labour government had under COVID period. 60% of the money that we have borrowed, that New Zealand have borrowed in the last government, were spent on things, like money already spent. They're not sitting in the central bank or reserve bank, but those money that were borrowed were spent on things that are not related to COVID. If it was spent on COVID or COVID-related issues, then I think it's necessary, because COVID was unprecedented. No one knows, huge uncertainty. We don't know how to make sure that we protect people's lives. But when money was borrowed to spend on things that are not COVID, I call it irresponsible. Yeah. Who's paying? New Zealand taxpayers, you and me and our future generations, right? So cost of living wise, I do a lot of, so outside Parliament, I do a lot of small business visits. Yeah. But also I go into a lot of supermarkets and deal with and work with the supermarkets. And I don't mean the major supermarket like Foodstuffs and Progressives, but more like, for example, recently I was at Lotus Supermarket. It was an Indian chain supermarket, and there are a couple of the Chinese supermarkets. They offer alternative shopping experience, different kinds of food that would be more appropriate, that will be more favoured by the ethnic migrants, but also sometimes cheaper range of food as well, right? So there are options outside the two major supermarket chains. However, when I go into the supermarkets, I often ask them about what is the supply chain pressure for you? Do you have much of a bargaining power with your local suppliers? How are you? Can we do anything from, for example, customs or MPI to make sure that you are getting efficient service, reducing the cost of storage, reducing the cost of clearance? I ask them about a lot of these kind of questions, and I bring them back to Parliament.
That's good.
But also, I shop as well. I go to my local supermarket, and I go to my local Asian supermarket as well, and often people stop me and go, "Are you Nancy?" And I say, "Yes, I am Nancy." And they're like, "What are you doing at the supermarket?" And then I'm like, "Well, one, I need to shop because I have 2 young children at home. I need to make sure that I'm shopping and cooking for my family too." So I know prices are very expensive, under a lot of pressure for most households. But also, secondly, I do enjoy going into the small business and the small supermarkets to get a feel of what is happening and get a feel of, the price fluctuations that we see in New Zealand.
That's really good. You are very quite popular face in public as well, because especially if we look through your social medias and things, you are actually engaging with people, and you don't just have that ego of leader. You actually interact with people very nicely, and that's very welcoming, and people know about that as well. And thanks for clarifying about the cost of living. What do you think about the fuel crisis right
Oh my
now?
God.
How the government is handling that?
Oh my God. I have to say it's an active and evolving very quickly. I often reflect on, one, it's unprecedented in humankind, in the recent history of such a large-scale war that resulted in the oil crisis that have, basically spread around the entire Earth, the entire planet Earth. Everybody is worse off because of the war, right? Everybody, not a single country, I think it's better off because of the war. But for New Zealand, because we live in the southern hemisphere,
That's pretty good, actually.
things happen in the evening when we go to bed.
Yeah.
Right? When we go to bed and wake up in the morning and there's all this news of this has happened, and
yes.
all this shock and crisis and all that. It is very hard to wake up to bad stories like this.
It's actually pretty good. We have a very good reputation living in New Zealand. It's actually very end part of the world, actually, which is really safe from the war, first of all.
Yes, geographically we're far enough.
And the second thing is actually, I just really wanted to know because today I was reading a news says 12 days of fuel left, and what government is doing to bring more to make people feel more safe going to works and things. So what's your plan? Like, what's their plan? Is like you sat down with them in Parliament?
So we have ministers who are assigned the roles of looking at the oil crisis and oil crisis management.
Yeah.
What we want to make sure is that we are not overreacting to cause people's anxiousness and therefore into irrational decisions or emotional decisions. We do see some emotional decisions by consumers or by households, but we'd like to make sure that people are, one, always informed of what's happening in New Zealand. That's why you see the fuel storage update every now and then. We are always making sure that we are either through mainstream media or social media like this, that we're talking to consumers. We always have our doors open for constituents who come in to talk. The government has worked really quickly to offer timely and effective and targeted relief plan. And obviously, New Zealand is not in a position that we can just give out money to or give out financial support to everyone in New Zealand.
Exactly.
We've experienced that during COVID, and the result of that was the increase in high inflation over 7%, that everybody is worse off. So one, we don't want to repeat the mistakes from COVID to splash money and causing high inflation. Second, we are actually not in a position, New Zealand is not in a position to borrow so much more money that we can't repay, right? So our government is very, very careful to offer timely, because we can't sit on it for too long. We need to offer timely help for people and family who really need the help, but also targeted help and effective help. Now, the recent bill that we also passed in Parliament that I was involved with is the benefit changes for superannuants, for veterans, for people with working for families, people with like work tax credits. So we are trying our best to target help people who need the help the most. Now, do all the families deserve support and help from New Zealand government? I would love to think so. If we're in a better financial position as a government, as a country, I would love to see every single household being supported by the government. At the moment, unfortunately, we're not in that position.
But I think it's still good, like with the government. The reason I'm thinking in one point, I'm really supportive of the government, which is like about giving something at least, like some households, like the ladies are with kids, like $50 a week, something like little help, even still good for some families. They can survive with, And also with a really good point about not borrowing money and then splashing all around and then still attack back, which is very good about that. So I think Christopher Luxon is doing an amazing job. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely think so. We worked very well together, particularly in East Auckland, and that's where I live. He is the right leader, the right Prime Minister, the one that really knows how to put the best people in his team to manage either crisis or rebuilding the economy, to manage different internal domestic issues as well as overseas global impact. I don't think he's been credited enough for his leadership in putting and forming the right team, especially during a crisis. Often people just look at the different ministers working in different portfolios, but people also need to understand there needs to be a leader with vision and with the courage to be able to restructure it at times when needed to make sure that we have the best team.
So who you admire most? Like before you joining the politics, do you join for certain leader, or who you admire most? Like there was a John Key as well before, there was Jenny Shipley as well. There's heaps of them. So who you admire most?
Well, funny you say that, because when I first came to New Zealand, I was very blown away when I saw the country leader was a female. Because it never really occurred to me that females can be so popular, can be so, can be the leader of a country. So when I first came to New Zealand, I was the first female Prime Minister in New Zealand history, and that was under a national government, and that was the Prime Minister of the day, Jenny Shipley. So that was the first inspiration for me about the National Party. Now, later on, when Sir John Key became the Prime Minister, what was critical, and people often forget, was he came on around the global financial crisis, right? And so how New Zealand had quickly readjusted ourselves to make sure that we get out of the global financial crisis and therefore develop with our global relationships and better trade deals. I remember the trade deal that was signed between New Zealand and China, which now actually contributes more than half, as the number one trading partner for New Zealand, right? Contributing over $40 billion in trade revenue a year. And this is why, from Jenny Shipley to Sir John Key, I am now extremely proud of the work under our current Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon, on the trade deal that his team, our government, has managed, managed to negotiate with India. And if you look around the world, a lot of countries want to have an official trade relationship with India because it is the large, most populated country, a very, very fast growing economy. A lot of people moving into middle income and then moving further into higher income. India is hungry for growth. India is hungry for relationship, but also it makes the bargaining, the negotiation between countries very challenging. New Zealand right now, with the FTA, the free trade agreement that we've negotiated with India, subject to passing in Parliament, is a really, really good FTA, free trade agreement, that the other countries are also asking New Zealand, how did you manage to get such a good deal from India?
That's pretty good to know that.
It is actually, and so if you pay attention, for example, to a lot of the trade conferences that our Minister of Trade and Investment, Honourable Todd McClay, goes to, he brings back and he talks to New Zealand media quite a bit about the good deal that New Zealand now has achieved with India, that the other countries are asking New Zealand for tips, for guidance, for advice. How did you do it with India? Now that requires a lot of government Prime Minister to Prime Minister relationship. Because we can see with Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Luxon, their relationship. It requires state visits, diplomacy visits, MFA, like foreign affairs negotiations, trade negotiation. It actually requires a huge amount of work, but also pushing through, particularly when we're in a trade war. We were in a trade war last year when all the negotiations took place. So to answer your question, I was really inspired by the first female Prime Minister, and then inspired to see how Prime Minister John Key elevated New Zealand out of the global financial crisis and booming economy for New Zealand. But now, under very challenging global uncertainties, that Prime Minister Luxon and his team were able to negotiate such a good free trade agreement for New Zealand.
How do you think, because some people, and through media, maybe through, I don't know, some people think that trade deals happen is all about bringing immigration and things like this. What you gonna say to people about that? Because sometimes they don't know exact idea behind any deal, even not with India, any country you do it, but why they have only stuck in their mind is immigration.
I welcome any feedback. If people are concerned about a particular topic in a free trade agreement, such as immigration issues, I welcome all comments and questions. I welcome these people to come and talk to me about it, or leave me questions, or give me emails, and I'm more than happy to respond. Because firstly, New Zealand is a migrant country. Everyone in New Zealand are migrants, right? We all came to this country to build the diversity, to build the relationship with our home countries, to expand, to grow the New Zealand economy while working with many countries around the world. We are known to be multicultural, to be very inclusive, to be diverse. That's number one. Second, some people are concerned about the immigration numbers, apparently with the India FTA, with the India Free Trade Agreement. However, there are existing visa options, from work visa to seasonal visas to open work visas to student visas to all kinds of visas that New Zealand already offer to many countries around the world, including India. With or without the FTA, Indian citizens who hold Indian passport have the right to apply to come to New Zealand to work.
It's like a pathways to come to
Yeah.
New Zealand. It's not like, because some people don't have that. They're blindsided thinking as bringing
No.
immigration.
And I
wanna
think
make that
New
clear.
New Zealanders need to understand the reason why we need to have an FTA with India, particularly noting Zespri, our largest kiwi fruit co-op in New Zealand, which is world known. Everybody, when they think of kiwi fruit now in the global market, kiwi fruit New Zealand, kiwi fruit Zespri, right? People are so committed with this highly reputable brand of kiwi fruits from New Zealand. It's our country fruit.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Zespri last week was at Parliament for their annual event, and during the chairman and CEO's speech, they talked about the importance of the free trade agreement with India because it will open the market for Zespri, and this is the largest, most populated market that New Zealand Zespri really wants to export into, to sell our kiwi fruits and bring back the export profit and the export value back to New Zealand. And what will that drive? It will drive better profit for Zespri. It would also increase the future growth potential for Zespri, and therefore Zespri can hire more people locally, grow more orchards, have more kiwi fruits for export. Ultimately, better jobs, more jobs, higher paying jobs for everybody who are working with Zespri. So they have been openly calling for cross-party support from the government, New Zealand First Act and New Zealand National, to the opposition parties. Zespri have been openly calling for support from all these political parties to agree to passing the free trade agreement with
That's pretty
India.
good to know that. Another thing I really know about you, you talk about crime as well. You talk about tougher sentences, and you're going to let public know because public really wanted to know about, like, you talk about crime. Crime is a big thing, and especially I'm really appreciate under national government, which I'm going to say, I'll say to every single leader as well. Under national government, there is actually reduced with the ram rates. Because there was higher ram rates with different governments. I don't want to mention them, but there was higher ram rates. And as a person or as a public figure, as a person, I'm saying that it's actually ram rates being reduced by 85%. So what do you think about tougher sentences that one are you pushing through?
Absolutely. I strongly believe in one thing called personal responsibility.
Yeah.
So I hold myself responsible for abiding to law, to be a good citizen of New Zealand, and I don't break any laws, and therefore if anyone breaks law, I believe that, that person needs to take on the responsibility to either correct themselves, improve themselves, and take on the consequences of breaking law. Now, what I think most people will have the same feeling as me. A couple of years ago, when you open your phone to check the news or on your computer to check the news, the first thing, the cover story is often ram raid here, ram raid there. Someone, stole a car and ram raided a store, or robbers with knives got into a particular dairy store and injured people. Those were the news every day, cover page. And I remember also hearing that I heard on the radio one day, there was a couple of years ago, and it blew me by surprise because it was a travel alert by the US government to US citizens for them to come to New Zealand because New Zealand is considered unsafe. I was in shock because New Zealand is one of the safest countries on earth. We've always been known as very friendly country, very welcoming country, very safe. I remember when I was a kid, leaving the front door open was okay.
Yes, that's true.
Right? And so having to wake up every day and read the news about ram raids was disappointing.
That was...
and I was very concerned for the reputation of New Zealand. Many people have decided to leave New Zealand because of that. Now, if you open your phone now, if you turn on your phone and if you go into cover page, you hardly now see ram raid stories or someone breaking the law. There are obviously, I don't believe that all countries can go for 100% safety and zero crime rate. That is, I don't think that is quite possible.
Yes.
That's where we'd like to go to.
Yes.
I don't think it's possible.
That's right.
Right? However, we as a government have focused a lot on restoring law and order, making sure that our law is up to date, is modern, and reflects tougher consequences for breaking law. Also, it gives police more policing power.
Yes.
It also reduces the amount of discounts that judges can give when the offender is associated as a gang member or have, the so-called taxpayers paid off cultural reports are used appropriately, not, the way that they were being used.
Yes.
There were many things that we were doing, and bringing back the 3 strikes law, for example, that was very popular. So there are a lot, I think there are more to go, but we have to acknowledge that now there are 45,000 less victims. And when we say less victims, and we achieved that way before our deadline, 45,000 less victims also means less families impacted.
Yes.
And it's not just 45,000 people, it's their wider family as well, because when someone is a victim, it's often their immediate family, their friends who are also impacted.
It happens. That's pretty good to know. And it's just like a couple of questions for you. And the last thing I really wanted to ask, why you choose to finish your public administration study now? I think you recently graduated for...
Yeah, I graduated in 2023, right before the election.
Yes.
I did my Master in Public Administration with Harvard University in the US.
Yes.
And that was a very critical year for me to learn about public service through one of the best schools available. And I built a lot of connections, political connections, but also understand the importance of writing and passing the right laws, because often political intentions and laws passed don't align or are driven by the wrong intention or have delivered the wrong outcome.
Exactly.
And so to be able to go to Harvard was a real privilege, but I was always very sure that as soon as I graduate, I wanted to come back to New Zealand.
Oh, that's pretty good. We are really good to have you as a leader, trust me, because you're doing an
Thank you.
amazing job for now. I know that. You want to give any message to the people at the end?
Oh.
They're watching you. They're going to watch you for forever as well.
Okay.
So anything you want to say for coming elections or what you're doing moving forward, so would love to know.
Thank you. Now, with the election this year, I think it is critical that you believe in your voting power. Everybody in New Zealand who can vote should vote, because only when you put your voice to the table that your voice will be heard in Parliament. It's been a privilege. It is the greatest privilege in my life to serve as a Member of Parliament in the 54th Parliament. But with the upcoming election, I'd like to invite everybody, particularly those who are migrants to New Zealand, whether you've been here in your first year or you've been here with your families for generations, it is critical that you vote for the party that you believe in, especially for a party in a government that is mature, that is resilient, that looks out for people of New Zealand and also in the best interest of New Zealand. So this election, make sure that you enrol and you vote.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Actually, it was great talking to you and going by you. Such an inspirational journey, and you've done an amazing job, and I know you're going to do an amazing job. I'm looking forward to see more of your work, So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Stay in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.